The woman put sleeping pills into a plate, then took out a knife and cut them in half, then threw the pills into a baby bottle. She also put ant-infested formula into the bottle. After heating it, she fed it to her child. Looking at the baby's innocent eyes, the mother felt no remorse, because she was in a hurry to meet her lover. Having a child with her was really inconvenient. Soon the baby fell asleep, but when the woman arrived at the bar, her husband had returned home early. He discovered ants left in the baby bottle. A bad feeling came over him. The man rushed to the child's room, but by then the baby had no response. Jack hurriedly took his daughter to the hospital. After the doctor's all-out efforts to save her, the baby finally woke from her coma. Jack thought it was the ants that nearly harmed his daughter, but the doctor's lab report that followed left him completely shocked, because they detected sleeping pill components. Watching the 4-needle inserted into the baby's arm, Jack shed tears of heartache. He could no longer tolerate this vicious wife. And afterwards, Jack's satisfying revenge would show you that a highly intelligent person who wants to kill can do it as easily as drinking water. Jack was normally introverted. Due to the economic crisis, he had been laid off from his company. Every day besides grocery shopping and cooking, he took care of the child. In contrast, his wife had a respectable job, not only managing a team of dozens, but also having a young, handsome assistant named John. Since Jack lost his job, his wife's attitude toward him had deteriorated. Even though he was accommodating in every way, his wife always found fault. One day Jack passed by his wife's company, thinking he would drop in for a visit, but when his wife received notice from reception, she immediately became flustered. She quickly hung up the phone, hurriedly fixed her makeup, and even opened the door cautiously, afraid someone would discover the door had been locked. When her husband entered the room, she casually introduced John. The first meeting between the two men in her life made her somewhat nervous. Unexpectedly, her husband suddenly invited John to dinner. This left Jenny unsure how to respond. Fortunately, John was perceptive and politely declined the invitation. However, seeing his wife's strange behavior, Jack sensed something was wrong. On the way home, he couldn't help questioning his wife, why she had taken off her shoes at the office. But Jenny's mind was clearly elsewhere, seemingly preoccupied with unfinished work at the office. She made an excuse about meeting a client, telling Jack to go home first to watch their child. Then she took a taxi to her secret hideout. John had been waiting there for some time, and they resumed the work they hadn't finished during the day. One day, Jack was resting on the sofa when the home phone suddenly rang, but when he answered, the caller said nothing. His wife, feeling guilty, froze in place, afraid something would be discovered. Fortunately, the caller hung up. Only then did his wife relax. She berated Jack at length, not only for not finding work, but also scolded him for not taking good care of their child. The unemployed Jack didn't know how to respond. He could only go to the garage to clean the car. He forcefully beat the floor mats, more as a way to vent his frustration with his wife. However, while cleaning up trash, parking receipts under the seat caught his attention. Several receipts were for the same unfamiliar address. What had his wife been doing there? While at the supermarket buying cigarettes, he also noticed on his wife's key ring a strange key he'd never seen before. This instantly made Jack think of something. A sense of foreboding came over him. He followed the address on the receipts to an apartment. With a try-and-see attitude, he inserted that key into the lock. To his surprise, with a gentle turn, the door actually opened. Jack couldn't believe what he was about to see. Looking through the door crack, fortunately, no one was there at the moment. He carefully walked into the room. It looked messy. The unmade bed suggested what had just happened there. However, when he turned around, the photos in the room shattered his last hope. Pictures of his wife were all over. The intimate poses were enough proof. He opened an album, and there was a photo of John kissing his daughter. This made him instantly understand. On the way back, his face was expressionless, as if he had lost everything. After returning home, he carefully examined the child before him, although he couldn't accept it. This had become reality. During dinner, he wanted to say something to his wife, but after hesitating, he couldn't bring himself to reveal the truth. He asked his wife if she was satisfied with their current life, but she didn't want to discuss it, deliberately changing the subject, saying dinner was good. The next day, his wife said she had to go on a business trip. Jack knew it was just her lie, but didn't expose her, because he still hoped she would have a change of heart. Sure enough, just as he thought, Jenny went to that secret place as usual, but when she prepared to take a shower, she found her daily necessities had been added. Opening the shower curtain, she saw her child's clothes prepared inside. These things made Jenny uneasy. She had never thought about moving there. Jenny questioned John about what he was trying to do, and he expressed his thoughts. He didn't want to keep sneaking around. He hoped to establish a relationship with Jenny. This undoubtedly crossed Jenny's bottom line. She even felt afraid, immediately grabbed her bag and left. Upon returning home, Jenny began conscientiously washing clothes and cooking, energetically cleaning the house, trying to return to being a housewife. Although she occasionally went out to indulge herself, she never thought about leaving this family. Jenny no longer yelled at her husband and began actively taking care of their child. She made a loving lunch for her husband, trying to close the distance between them. Jack also noticed his wife's change, but because he already knew the truth, he still acted somewhat cold. His wife also noticed Jack's dissatisfaction. She said she had been too busy with work lately, so she seemed a bit unusual, but now everything was resolved. However, just as he was ready to put those unpleasant things behind, a phone call broke the peace. Jack answered the phone. The caller, like before, said nothing. His wife looked tense. Obviously she knew it was John calling. After dinner, Jack went to consult a teacher about career issues, but as soon as he left, the phone rang again. Jenny looked around before answering. As she expected, it was John calling. He couldn't accept being dumped without explanation. He hoped they could meet. Although Jenny said there was no one to watch the child, John was insistent. If she didn't come out, he would make their affair public. Jenny angrily hung up, but John called again. It turned out he was already at their door. Seeing that John was about to expose everything, she had no choice but to agree to meet, to go out and settle things. Jenny desperately wanted the child to sleep. Seeing it was almost time for the meeting, she reluctantly took out several sleeping pills. After the child fell asleep, Jenny went downstairs to meet John. Soon her husband returned home, found his daughter with a high fever, and immediately took her to the hospital. Fortunately, after examination, the daughter didn't have any serious problem. After a few 4 bags, they could return home. Meanwhile, John sent the drunk Jenny home, but unfortunately, Jack had just returned from the hospital with their child. The scene before him was like a bolt from the blue. He stood frozen for a long time, but finally decided to hide first. Jack didn't refrain from going over to kill her, but was quietly waiting for a better opportunity. When he thought John had left, Jack slowly walked toward home, but the moment he opened the door, the scene inside shocked him again. His wife's lover hadn't left. He had even come into their home. Jack didn't make a sound. He just chose to quietly close the door for them. The next day, Jack specifically asked a friend to drive him to the train station to attend a friend's funeral. However, after saying goodbye to his friend on the train, he quietly got off, immediately returned to John's home. He put on a pair of rubber gloves, found his hair on the bed, then ransacked the place, and found a dagger in a drawer. When his wife returned home, sitting in front of the mirror removing makeup, she saw her intimate photos. She immediately called John, thinking he was trying to threaten her, but before she could finish, the power in the house suddenly went out. Just as she was about to go check the situation, a hand grabbed her throat tightly. In the moonlight, she saw it was her husband. Only as death approached did she realize the consequences, but it was all too late. Afterwards, Jack took John's hair from his handkerchief, dropped it next to his wife, left the key in the door as he went out, and didn't forget to wipe away his fingerprints. After seeing John rushing over, Jack appeared at his house, left his wife's blood in the bathroom. After everything was done, he took an overnight train to another city. At this moment his heart was completely calm. The next day, Jack deliberately called a neighbor, saying he couldn't contact his wife, asked her to check their home, but as soon as the neighbor pushed open the door, she screamed loudly. Soon the police arrived and sealed off the scene. Police collected hair at the scene, since Jack had a perfect alibi. Soon, the police ruled out his suspicion, and comforted him not to be too sad. The arrested John was miserable. Not only would he spend his life in prison, but also face public contempt. Jack returned home with his child, but the home had lost its former brightness. It was filled with a cold desolation. He cleaned the room, trying to restore the former warmth. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could never erase that painful sorrow. He took out the rings symbolizing their love. A bitter nostalgia welled up in his heart. The photos on the wall still recorded his wife's former smile and happiness. This made him shed tears, both for missing his wife, and for his own self-reflection. For things to have reached this point, he surely bore some responsibility. Perhaps he hadn't cared enough for his wife. Now everything was beyond recovery, and he would forever live in painful memories.